Welcome to this week's Eternal Monday, which is a new episode of First Drafts. Today, Quad Wobbuffet Control takes on Dodrio. And we'll see if Dodrio has a chance. Quad Wobbuffet looks to be quite the menace for this particular matchup, but we shall see how it's going to go. I'm going to explain my strategy, generally how the deck is expected to work, and then my opponent is going to explain how I won't get to do any of those things. So, first off, we have Dodrio from 151. It has the ability Zooming Draw. Once during a turn, you may put a damage counter on this Pokemon if you do draw a card. So that's your extra draw engine to get extra cards. And then it has an attack called Ballistic Beak, which does 10 damage. But it also says this attack does 30 more damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So ideally, you're getting a whole bunch of damage counters on Dodrio. You're going to get high enough, like 9 damage counters, for example. You're going to get a ton of damage, do 280 with a single energy attachment. We are running the Dodrio from base set because it has free retreat, which makes it pretty nifty. And we are also running this nifty little unknown. You've probably seen it before when I tried to make Spiritomb work. Look, I'm going to try to make all the damage things work and then fail. It has a Poke Power rather that says once during your turn, if unknown P is on your bench, you may put a damage counter on one of your Pokemon, excluding any unknown. So this is a way to get extra damage counters onto Dodrio. Speaking of ways to get damage counters on Dodrio, we have Rainbow Energy. Rainbow Energy works as any type of energy, which is fine. We don't care what type it is. But when you attach it, it puts a damage counter on the Pokemon it's attached to. Additionally, because one damage counter is not enough, and we are sadists here, or masochists, I don't remember which one's which. I think it's masochists. We have a stadium called Frozen City that says, whenever any player attaches an energy from his or her hand to one of his Pokemon, excluding Team Plasma Pokemon, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So suddenly that Rainbow Energy attachment is 3 damage counters instead of just 1. And Dodrio likes how it hurts. Up next, we have Powerful Colorless Energy. If for whatever reason we're not getting to use the Rainbow Energy, we do still get a little boost in damage. This boosts our damage for colorless Pokemon by 20, which is something. We can also move damage counters around if they're on the wrong Pokemon, perhaps the wrong Dodrio. With Damage Mover from Shining Legends, we're moving 3 damage counters from one Pokemon to another Pokemon. And then finally, our last piece of this quickly broken strategy is Hustle Belt from Celestial Storm, which says if the Pokemon this card's attached to has 30 HP remaining, or less rather, and has any damage counters on it, its attacks do 60 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon before applying weakness and resistance. So that 280 goes even higher, up to 340, which is basically as high as you need to go for Eternal, unless your opponent is an absolute jerk. But yes, Dodrio should work, should function. And here we have the deck that's telling us that it will not.
So this is Quad Wob. It's not quite a true quad deck, but it does what it needs to. So Wobbuffet has the really fun ability, Bide Barricade. It says, as long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, each Pokemon in play in each player's hand and each player's discard pile has no abilities except for Psychic Pokemon. So it's pretty much kind of like Iron Thorns EX in Standard and current Standard, in that it's just a big old menace on the format. Now this is actually a long-term sort of game plan. You do actually try to take prize cards in this sort of deck with its attack Psychic Assault, which is a Psychic and colorless for 10 plus 10 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. So the main goal of the deck is to lock your opponent out while loading as much damage on them for big hits in the late game. To do that sort of thing, we have cards like Roxy, which we will explain here in a moment. Discards 2 Pokemon that aren't Pokemon GX or EX from your hand, and then you draw 3 cards for each card discarded in this way. So this is our main draw support. But you combine that with the effects of both wheezing and coughing from, what is it, Unbroken Bonds, or is that Unified Minds? I was completely wrong. That one. But they both have the Blow Away Bomb ability, which says once during your turn, when you discard this Pokemon with the effect of Roxy, you may put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. So the goal is to do as much spread damage with these abilities, since they are psychic types, so they're not shut off by Wobbuffet. We are using these abilities to load up our opponent's Pokemon with damage counters, which helps in the case of Dodrio here. We're loading them up with damage and then being able to ping them for more with Psychic Assault. since it does more damage for the damage counters on them. Additionally, we do have a couple ways that aren't those two of dealing damage to them, such as Horror Psychic Energy and Bursting Balloon. Horror Psychic is just if we get hit, we put 2 damage counters on them if we're a Psychic type. And then Bursting Balloon is if we get hit, we put 6 damage counters on them, but it's discarded at the end of the turn. So we do have a couple of ways of building up damage on some of the bigger guys we need to knock out. And finally, we are running Cessation Crystal because we're trying to make our opponent not have fun with the game. This tool says as long as it's attached to the active Pokemon, each player does not get to use their Poke Powers or bodies. So pretty nice way of shutting down more of your opponent's ways to be able to do things. And our ace pick of choice is Unfair Stamp, which combined with the ability and Poke Body / Power Shutoff makes it to where it's very difficult for them to come back from only being able to have the 2 cards in hand. So,
all right, we're gonna get shuffled up. We'll be right back. All right, heads or tails?
Tails.
With heads. I'll go first. That long thought and then realization. All right.
All right.
Let's see. Demo again. Take note. I don't know what to do.
All right, take us off.
Return. That's pretty accurate. Is right. I think I'll do that. Touching a rainbow energy, doing 10 damage to, or sorry, putting a damage counter on Dodrio. And that's basically all I can do. So I will pass the turn to you.
I'll draw. I will hand it and play heavy one. Oh, those are prize cards.
You're saying there's a chance.
Interesting. Not the worst prizes, but there are some cards in there that I wish weren't.
Fair enough.
Let's see. Fog Crystal?
Crystal. So searching for either a basic psychic or a basic psychic energy.
We'll grab Wobbuffet and bench it.
I have a male Wobbuffet and a female Wobbuffet in play. I feel like they're going to start multiplying.
How do I want to put it? I will.
Very carefully.
Fog Crystal?
Yep.
For a
Run for all of
energy.
them.
And then
here's my Hala.
I'll Goose Holla. I'll just grab a Stadia.
Interesting choice. But okay.
Sometimes I forget that I can just not do the second effect.
Right.
I'll play Dimension Valley. I'll attach return. Crystal. And Psychic Assault for 20 damage.
30. With the KO by 20 damage. God, muscle bite.
Yeah.
Something, Ryan.
Yeah, something muscle bend.
Anybody puffing?
Duo.
Duo.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Currently, I would be doing 20 shy, right?
10 shy.
10 shy. And I cannot zoom and draw.
Okay.
Research. Support right.
It's got an Evo and a Dark Energy.
Nothing.
Yep.
Ballistic beak.
Draw. Luxury roll.
Mm-hmm.
For what?
No. If you get that reference, let me know in the comments below.
Bench. Touch. Psychic Assault for 40.
Draft turn. Says. Ballistic beak.
Good. Big 20 buck. Draw.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Yep. Pass it. You can always put on that Dodrio.
Why would I do that? I'm dumb, but I'm not that dumb.
Freeze up the dead space. Wow.
If I have to, but I would rather not. And probably won't pay off. But I'll try anyway. Research.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what are you just playing?
Like all the things.
Why don't you play this?
I can't. I don't have a target.
Oh, I see. If you do switch your... I was like... I think that makes sense. I forget it can't just be used as a switch. Man, I lived a turn that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Draw. That doesn't help me at all.
Good. Not bitter at all. Especially as I friggin' threw out some very good resources to not get what I wanted.
Versus Seeker. Goose Hollow? Lake Goose Hollow? Man, I wasn't going to see anything for a while. I'll play it. And then pass.
Draft turn. Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, that's literally all I needed was Larvin. Retreat this guy out, put him in the active,
I was drawing nothing.
and then whack you.
I would have top decked that. I had nothing. For ages.
Okay. My prizes weren't the worst, thankfully. I didn't like to see the rainbow energy in there, especially since I tried so hard that last turn to get some freaking energy so I could retreat manually. But the deck runs 6, right? We'll look at the deck list here in a second. I had 3 in deck that I could have gotten there. And I did not. Alright, let's get these deck lists. Up first is Dodrio, which I mean, for what it's worth, at least it did better than Spiritomb. Spiritomb really stink it up. Which is funny because you'd think it would be basically the same. Isn't it the same multiplier even? Like, we've got Spiritomb in this deck. Here it is. Yeah, it's literally the same multiplier. I don't understand why. I guess the bigger built-in HP kind of helps a lot in that respect. You're able to sponge a little bit more.
And you get to draw the ability.
Theoretically, you get to do some drawing with it, which also kind of does help. Put I never got to use, but it would have been really good too.
I mean, you could have used it. You just didn't.
I didn't. No sane person would have used it in the circumstances I had. That's it. I did have Thractor FB, but I can only level up in the active spot, so that didn't really help, unfortunately. Legacy Energy could have been real fun, but again, it never got to come out to play either. It was basically just told my deck no, and then I tried to say no back, and that's basically how it happened. Up for your list is Quad Wob. You have comments on the list as is?
We were kind of talking about it before the match, but I think this deck would really benefit from like Pokegear. Just because it needs the supporters that it needs a lot of the time, like right when it needs them. And as you saw in that game, I just dead drew the whole time, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was a great matchup for me personally, just because you kind of can do your thing without abilities. And a lot of times, especially in this case, I'm helping you to do your thing. So I don't think there was really a whole lot I could have done to mitigate the damage you were outputting, because you would have gotten there one way or another.
Yeah, your damage output is actually not that crazy. Have you considered Heroescape?
I mean, it's an option. I just don't think that tool aspects are very good in Eternal, just because Faba exists, period.
I mean, that's true, but it's surprising how few decks actually run Faba. I mean, Life Dew is a card and is a problem for some decks, so I don't know. I was definitely scared of Lost Remover. Was what you
I never saw it.
Yeah. That Cess was a pain in the ass too, because it basically made it so I couldn't use put. Wob was already shutting off draw, so it just really slowed me down a lot. But like you said, it was able to do it, and it's interesting too because the damage that you did to me that one turn you were able to set up was just enough to get it so I could, with that powerful colorless energy, actually do enough to knock you out. Without that, I wouldn't have been able to do that, which is interesting. But that is it for first drafts and for Eternal Monday today. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have some suggestions for either of these decks, be sure to leave them in the comments section down below. As always, stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next one.